All right, everybody, welcome back. Take Flight Garage. Porsche state of affairs. Why is the engine bay all torn up? Well, the thing that started this entire project here is ever since I got my air conditioning fixed, the car would begin to overheat, especially as it started hitting triple digits. So I did a couple things. I only run distilled water, added water wetter to it. That helped for a little bit, and then over time, same thing. It just started reaching a point where it would hit a sort of thermal runaway. So I have all this taken apart right now so I could replace the sending unit for the gauge. That's the one that's threaded into the block right there. So that temperature sensors for the gauge in the car, and this one with the fuel injection plug on it is for the DME. So there's sometimes some confusion between those two sensors. That one in the block is for the gauge, and the blue connector, the fuel injection connector, is for the DME. I've already replaced this, just preventative, a couple years ago. So I decided to replace that one because this is how the one in the car looked. Not in the best shape. So I'll leave this here so you guys can see the brand and the part number there. I was able to get this off Amazon, or excuse me, AutoZone. So if you're looking for that part, it is available. It's not terribly expensive, but about 60 bucks. And then of course, whenever you're removing the intake boot on these, they're 40 years old, they've never been replaced. The bottom of this was just completely dried out. The top where all the stuff was sprayed on looks pretty nice, but the bottom where it sits right on top of the block just always dries up. So I ended up ordering a replacement from Lindsay Racing. Going to be switching to a silicone hose just to handle the heat a little bit better. On top of that, I also ordered a kit from Amazon that includes these, they're called cable clamps for whatever reason, but Porsche uses them all over the place. This one is for that upper radiator hose. You can see in removing this, first off, it just is not in the best shape, and the plastic just completely disintegrated. So I have both those things on the way, and I'll try to replace what I can for those cable clamps, whatever's visible. Cleaned up the battery grounds, have the battery currently disconnected. Took a wire wheel to some of the components in here just to clean things up. Did a little bit of cleaning on the tough to reach areas and wiping down some of the hoses. We got that CSF radiator to hopefully solve that overheating issue when the air conditioning is on. The symptoms that I were having is it would overheat. It would start to actually get into that red zone or above the third mark, especially if it was like 110 or 116 degree day. And I don't think it's an issue with the fans because as soon as you shut the AC off, the temperature would come right back down even at idle. If it was at idle and you let it sit at idle, it would take forever, but the temperature would still come back down. And then as soon as you start driving, it would come back down. But with the AC on, even at highway speeds, with all that air going through the radiator, the car was still just starting to run hot. So I think maybe this radiator is old or has some buildup in there. It's probably original, and with the condenser throwing all the heat onto it, it just couldn't efficiently wick that heat away. I only run distilled water, and I tried some water wetter with it, and that didn't really help. It helped a little bit with temperatures up to about like 95 degrees Fahrenheit out here, but we started hitting temps in in triple digits in the teens, so like 110 to 116 degrees, and that just wasn't cutting it. So the other thing I'm going to be doing is replacing all the factory coolant lines with Lindsay's coolant hose silicone kit. You go back and forth with things. There's a couple trade-offs with silicone. Some people say that they get the ends leaking coolant. I have no idea. I also see people who say that they've had lines for 10 plus years on their car and never had any issues. So we'll see what happens with that. So eventually we'll be doing the radiator and all the coolant hoses. I think for a time being, I might just, when that silicone hose for the intake comes back, throw that on the car and drive it around and see what the temperature readings are with this new temp sensor plugged in. Maybe do that for a week before I disassemble everything. Either way, the car is getting a little bit of a break. She's been quite a bit of a workhorse. Let's see what else. yeah, I think that's really it. A couple things. I might end up replacing the coolant tank with a new one just to, you know, take the look of the engine bay back up a little bit, as well as just have an easier time reading the coolant levels. There was one video I posted where people were saying the tank is overfilled because it looks like water's all the way up here. But if you look closely, if I shake it, now you can't even see, but the water level's right about here. So definitely time for a new coolant tank, and with the whole system being empty, it's the time to do it. Following that mantra of if the car needs anything in one particular area, just replace all of it as best as I can. So that's about where everything is right now. So if the videos are a little bit slow, it's just waiting for stuff to ship and waiting stuff to be delivered. I want to do a couple videos testing the fans on this stock radiator, the stock fans with it, and throwing them on the new radiator and just seeing what the CFM reading on it is. I think that would be kind of interesting, because I need to pick up an anemometer and do that. I think that would be some helpful information. Now's the time to do that too, with everything kind of all taken apart. And that's about where all the stuff with the car is. And I think one other video that I'm thinking about doing, because the channel is close to hitting 500 subscribers, and that's pretty cool. So I think as a little thank you, I think it'd be a cool thing to have you guys, maybe I'll post up an email address, and if you guys can send me photos of your cars, of your 944s, give me, you know, a little bit of a background, some details on your cars, share some cool things about them, you know, how you bought it, when you bought it, things you might have done to the car, and maybe every week until we hit that 500 subscriber mark, do a little appreciation video and share some of the cars that you guys own. I'm always posting about my car, but I always love hearing about other people's cars and the stories behind them. So let me know if that's something that you guys would be interested in. I'll for sure, if that is the case, I'll post the link to an email where you guys can shoot me those photos, and I'll put together some videos. I think it would be really cool, maybe just like a once a week thing. So with that being said, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.